Years ago, when Sokolowski was teaching us Aristotle, that line, what's the right thing to do? And the answer is find the good man and do what he does.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you can say, well, it's a circular answer, but I think there's something very right about that. It's not so much learned abstractly through principles. It's, well, there's the good man. And especially if you're in a smaller community, it's easy enough to pick out, oh, yeah, that's the good man that I want to, whatever he or she does, that's what I want to do. In the more religious context, it would be the saint. Who's the saint in our community? What do the saints do? Well, that's what I want to do. And I wonder if that's a way to recover this great tradition. It's not just a theoretical, as you suggest, but it's these embodied figures, the good man, the good woman, the saint, will teach us, what the good is.
Yeah, since I'm in Minnesota right now, I always like to mention to my students, I say, well, many of you want to go off and you will go off and work for, again, you'll be a functionary in the regime in Washington, D.C., and you'll have a good life and it'll be interesting. You'll meet lots of interesting people and you'll be surrounded by nice restaurants and so forth. But you will be, you may have some impact. You may help draw up some legislation, but you'll have relatively modest impact in terms of the world around you. I said, but think about someone like Moonlight Graham, who was in Chisholm, Minnesota, right?
Field of Dreams.
If you know the movie Field of Dreams,
yeah,
right? This was he was the local doctor. He was a real figure. He was a real human being. And
Burt Lancaster from the movie.
He played by Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
And I love baseball, as you can tell. I've referenced it several times. And I just wanted to learn more about him, so I've spent some time reading about him. And he's someone who every community in America has had people like this.
Yeah.
I grew up in a town, Windsor, Connecticut. We had people like this. Every town.
The good man that people would.
Yeah, the good man, exactly, who was a kind of figure of enormous prestige and prominence in that relatively small place. He was the doctor, and he would open up his practice on Saturdays to serve especially children whose parents couldn't afford care. And he especially had a concern about sight and vision. And so he would always pay for young children's glasses, glasses, so that they would be able to see. And he was so esteemed and admired that after he passed away, not only, of course, did they name things after him, but they create a scholarship, which still exists to this day, to send a student off to study medicine.
Yeah.
And I suspect that today, if there were Moonlight Graham, kind of someone like Moonlight Graham in Chisholm, Minnesota, he or she would get a scholarship to Harvard or Yale and would be working in New York City or Washington, D.C., which means that what these institutions are doing is depriving the Chisholm, Minnesotas of the person who could be somebody who would be profoundly transformative and will be remembered by that community. And this is what I try to appeal to my students' ambition, because they're ambitious.
Right.
I said, look, you can go get a job in Washington, D.C., and you'll have a good life. But if you're ambitious, you can be a great man or a great woman in a smaller place.
And have a huge impact.
Far more than you're likely to have in Washington.
Well, I think that's dead right.